The Colorado Authors League presents The Cal Zone, the League's official podcast. Welcome to a place for tasty conversation about books, art, and more, all created by members of the Colorado Authors League. Here's your host, Tricia Copeland.
Welcome, Fleur.
Hi.
Fleur is a middle grade and young adult mystery writer, and she has a lot of books in those genres, but she also has a book, Get a Clue, about how to write mystery for middle grade and YA readers. Fleur, jump in and tell us, I don't know where you want to start, if you want to start with your books or how to write, but we are excited to learn all about mystery, YA, and middle grade.
Oh, excellent. And I love talking about it. So this is going to be great. So I always start all of my talks with I'm Fleur and I love mysteries because that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I love reading mysteries for adults, also write some for adults, short stories and such. But I'm probably best known for my mysteries for kids. And one of them won actually the Colorado Authors League Award. So that was kind of cool. That's Daybreak on Raven Island, and then Midnight at the Barclay Hotel won the Colorado Book Award. You kind of see the plaque behind me. But what I've been doing is going to conferences and teaching people how to write a mystery in general, and then specifically how to write a mystery for kids. And I would be teaching, and I would be referencing some books, but there wasn't really anything specific to writing mysteries for kids and teens. I would sort of be cobbling together other people's books as references and go, well, you could take a little of this, a little of that, and then it will maybe help you. And then I thought to myself, well, there isn't a book to teach anyone. So why don't I write it? So that process took me a while between, other books and other things. But it is now out in April. So this is the book. And it's basically, it's a dense little book, but it's got basically all my advice as far as my process and what I think works and how to plot and kind of, place the clues right. Some of the questions that I would get all the time, I tried to answer in the book. So anybody who wants to write a mystery for kids, I can go, well, here's a book, and this is everything I know, and I hope it helps you.
Well, great. So take us from the start. If you think you want to write mystery for YA and middle grade, maybe what is different about YA and middle grade books from other forms of literature? I do
think that so YA and middle grade are often lumped together, and that whole category of children's, sort of picture book all the way through YA is often lumped together. But you kind of have to start by understanding that middle grade and YA, there's a sort of a line right after middle grade where the buyer in middle grade chapter book and picture books are not the actual readers. So you have to go past these sort of gatekeepers, which are librarians, teachers, parents, grandparents, whoever's, gifting this book to a child, and you're kind of selling them on it without it being for them. And then you still have sell the kids on the book as well. So it's a complex process. And then YA is more, anything goes, but you also have to understand certain things will make it harder to get into the library. I also have cats. So
Sorry, he does this.
I have a kitten right here on my lap right now. So yeah, he's such a sweet boy. Anyway, so as far as writing for children goes, that's sort of the broad strokes of understanding that I had to learn when I came to the children's side of the aisle, so to speak. And then there's the part of writing. So how do you write a mystery? So sometimes I get people who want to write for kids who are mainly mystery writers. Sometimes I get people who write for kids who want to write a mystery. As far as mysteries go for kids, I think particularly for middle grade and younger, so that category where, the adults are still buying the books up to about age 12, you'll probably want to be careful what sort of crime you put in the book and how much you share about that. When I started writing Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, I set out to write basically a murder mystery for kids, which is, at the time, everybody was like, you can't put a murder in a book. But you can if it's like a cozy mystery. And people who have read or have written cozy mysteries know what I'm talking about, that where it's about the puzzle, about the solving, and it's not about any of the dark details of the crime. So if you keep it in that sort of realm, you can write a murder mystery for kids. I did it, and it's read at third grade and up because it works, because the murder doesn't happen on the page. As far as YA goes, anything goes pretty much. You just want to be, again, mindful that if you are trying to write a book that you would like to get into classrooms or libraries, that you understand the climate and the things that teachers and librarians have to deal with in order to get that book in the hands of kids. And then also understanding that on the YA side, I think the majority of YA readers are actually not teenagers, so a lot of them are adults. So that's also going to play into what you write, perhaps. So the book covers a little bit of both, where, okay, so what do you have to think about when you write for kids? And what do you have to think about when you're writing a mystery in general? Honestly, you could use it to plot any mystery. It just happens to be, that I focus on that younger age group.
Right. Yeah. So I was thinking that what kids are learning like third through fifth grade, I mean, they start learning about the Holocaust and hard things that happen in our world. So I can see that cozy mystery where you have a murder that happens maybe, and the kids find out about it and they're, up in arms about this, and then they take over and somehow solve the mystery. Right. Yeah, I can see that being kind of age appropriate, because at that point, I think they start being aware and start like listening more to the news and paying attention to the world around them, and are taught some of those hard things.
I think also what works for it is that it requires deductive reasoning. So as a teacher or a librarian, you can use a mystery to kind of teach, like, oh, okay, this is the information you have. What can you draw from that? How would you come to the conclusion of, oh, this is the person who committed this crime, whether it's a murder or whether it's a theft or whatever it is that you've decided to make the central part of your mystery. It's really about, these are your clues and how do you come to the end conclusion. And also, that's fun. The murder mystery part is kind of like a game, so you can gamify it a little bit. And it's fun because I get to hear from the kids. There's, particularly Midnight at the Barclay Hotel, there's a couple big plot twists in there. And it's fun to talk to them about how to, once they've read the book, if I'm doing a school visit, I can talk about, okay, this is how I placed that. And this is how I foreshadowed and placed the clues. So you would, when you look back, you have to be able to say, oh, of course. But when you're reading it, you might not make that conclusion. So it's fun to sort of talk about, how do you place a plot twist? How do you make sure that that's believable and that is not something that you just tacked on or did for effect?
My mind jumped to the game of Clue, where, obviously somebody has been murdered, and from, my kids played it from age 7 or something.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. And as adults, we love it. I mean, look at how popular some of the movies that are a little bit like that now, Only Murders in the Building, and some of the other ones that are very traditional Agatha Christie style mysteries.
Right. Yeah. I watched the Onions mystery and I was so excited because I got it right. But some of your clues that you put in the book might lead them off into a different way that's the wrong way. And some may lead them to this, to the right path.
Yeah.
And so it seems like what you're saying is, I mean, not just the content. You want middle grade or YA content that's appropriate, not too graphic or too intense for that reader, but also maybe one of the major differences is how you're selling the book and how you're going about selling the book and how you're marketing that and talking to the adult, whether it's a teacher or a librarian or a family member or a parent. So that's like a big component, because I did see on your website that you have a for teachers section, and you have a guide for teachers, and you have a place where people can go and request that you come to their classroom or their educational events. So how much of your time does that take up?
I try to make it 50-50. Whenever I'm working on a book, that 50% of my time is always spent on creating something new, whether I'm editing or I'm writing a book or I'm working on, like in this case, Get a Clue, I'm doing independently. So it's a bit different of a process for me as far as the other books for children were traditionally published. So then obviously the publisher picks up some of the work there. But I try to make it so half my time is spent creating something new and half my time I spend doing, answering emails, doing school visits, Q&As, all the marketing sort of business side of everything that comes with it. And I think on the children's side, that's definitely something I had to learn as an author, how to be entertaining, how to make a visit fun for the kids, because I love mysteries. I would come into a classroom and they'll be like, yeah, whatever, lady, people are talking to us all day. And then by the end of it, everybody's excited and you're talking about what they're reading. And, they're talking about a murder mystery that maybe they thought of, they could write a story about. And then you kind of connect as a group and they have the other kids connect and they connect with you. And sort of that, hey, lady, whatever thing falls away. And that's the most rewarding part, honestly. You can kind of see behind me, I have a clip that holds art. And when the kids send me drawings or letters, I hang one up and I change them out. And it's kind of my inspiration and my way of reminding myself who I'm working for, because it's easy to get lost in that whole process, whether it's the publishing side, or whether it's the sales, or whether it's the librarians and the teachers and all the people with their reviews and their opinions in the middle that really obscure who you're really working for, which is the kids. It has to be about the kids at the end of the day, because I want them to be excited about reading. One of the things that I do as well is I have a literacy talk. So I talk to educators about reaching reluctant readers, because that's kind of my sort of target reader, are reluctant readers, kids that don't like to read, and reading is definitely on a decline. So the talk is popular now. And I try to remember why I do this in the first place, which is to get kids reading. Because if you can keep kids reading, it makes such a huge difference in their lives, whether they're successful or whether they'll be able to continue school, finish high school, go to college, all the things that we want for our kids. They're all done through reading. So getting them excited in the classroom with the school visit, or whether it's virtual like this, that's been great now. That's more done a little bit more. People have more of an open mind when it comes to virtual visits. So that part of it has become bigger as well, where I sometimes work with educators, librarians to try to keep kids reading. So that aspect of it is very rewarding. I think that's the best part about writing for kids.
But it is time consuming. I could say it because you have to contact all the schools. Some of it might be self-perpetuating because if one librarian sees it and then she tells her friends, and that might help. But it seems like it's a lot of footwork to maybe, focus on your area where you live and get those schools involved and then get those teachers involved and all of those things. Because I wrote a middle grade book and I thought, this is one of the hardest books to market. And I just kind of made the choice to say, okay, this is not what I want to focus on now, because it's not, I didn't have the energy to put into that.
Well, and it takes, gosh, I've been doing this for writing for children for 14 years. My very first book for kids, Double Vision, you can see it kind of behind me, came out in 2012, and that one didn't do all that well as far as money went and sales and numbers, because it was so difficult to get any momentum going. What you're talking about is exactly that. It's like it's a whole different world, and it takes forever to build that sort of Rolodex of people that whether it's like now, this book is coming out, Get a Clue, and I'm realizing I know so many reviewers, librarians, teachers, people that can, other writers, people who can help me get the word out, because a lot of it is about that constant, reminding people that you're here and that you have a book, and you don't want to go, buy my book all the time. It gets old, and you're like, well, somebody else needs to really talk about it. That's the key, if you can get other people to talk about it. But getting that momentum going, I see it among authors all the time, particularly when you're first coming out with the middle grade. It's just really hard. And it isn't you if you're, having a hard time, if you're out there and you're author for kids and you're like, I can't get anything going. Everybody starts that way. It just takes a long time. It used to be that when a publisher acquired the first book by an author, they knew it was going to lose money, but they'd stick with that author for 10, 20, 30 years for their career. Publishers don't really do that so much anymore. So some of what would otherwise be, a wave you can ride is gone now for authors. So a lot of people that I know just stop writing for kids and go do something else, write for other people or write for adults, or they just kind of let it go because it is that hard. I will add, just as sort of a context, I came off of that trilogy. This was a trilogy, the Double Vision books. And that one did okay, but not awesome. And then that was sort of done. And I thought, okay, sales numbers are bad. I'm not going to get another book contract again. But I wrote Midnight at the Barclay Hotel. So that's this book. It came out in August of 2020. So if you put that into context of what was going on at the time, I had a whole launch plan, right? I had done these 3 books. I'm like, I'm not going to let this thing tank. I'm going to work so hard. It's going to do great. I had a whole marketing plan with I was going to do a tour and visit all the bookstores and do all the things. And then COVID hit in March and everything was shut down. So, in the beginning, I was, feeling a little selfish where I was like, this book is going to tank again. Here it goes. I'm so unlucky. And then I saw around me all the teachers I know, all the educators I know, all the parents I know struggling so hard with their children at home. And I'm like, what am I whining about? I'm here so selfishly thinking about my book. And here are people that are having to deal with, scrambling to take care of our kids, which is what this is all really about. So then I thought to myself, well, I'm just going to do school visits, virtual school visits, because everything was going, you remember 2020, right? The schools were all online. Everybody was at home reading with their kids. So that was a positive thing. And I thought to myself, well, I'm just going to do free school visits, the Zoom kind. So teachers were latching onto that like bananas because it was content and it was something to do because everybody was a bit desperate and we were all just adjusting and it was all really hard. So I just did that for the school year and I had so much fun because it was, it was lonely to be home. And I mean, I had my family, but we all remembered that we were all stuck in the house and nobody could go anywhere. So it was a window to the world. And I got to see the kids at home with their pets and with their sisters and brothers on the lap and people making dinner in the kitchen. And it was such a special kind of launch that I'm like, forget the sales numbers. It just doesn't matter. I can't control that anyway. And the only thing I can control is what I do with what I've got in front of me. So I did, I think, over 100 Zoom school visits that school year. And then the book just took off. So I think that was the unluckiest time was for me the luckiest time because I was able to kind of get the word out in a very organic and helpful way. I was trying to help teachers, help parents, and it worked because I think that's if you're stuck with your marketing, if you're not sure what you're supposed to do, particularly for children, try to find a way you can be a helper, like you can solve someone's problem, whether it's a bookseller who needs an event or a school that needs somebody to talk about being an author. Just say yes to things and have fun with it. And then people will buy your book just because you were a nice person. You did a nice thing for them. And that will pay back. I'd like to think that pays back in life anyways, but, it also pays back. So at the end of the day, we want our books to sell, right? So it helps, I think, with book sales as well.
Well, thank you for sharing it. That's awesome that you could pivot that way and really help out those teachers because, my kids were in high school, like young high schoolers during that time, and it was so hard. It was horrible. So I'm sure, yes, all the teachers really appreciated that. Okay, I do want to pivot a little bit and talk about writing and the actual writing process because I was talking with a mystery author a couple of weeks ago maybe, and they said they wrote the book and then went back and peppered in clues. What is your process? Do you outline before and then get everything laid out and then write, or do you do their method?
I outline, and then I detail that some in the book, which is I outline using kind of a script writer's method. So I have sequences, and there's about 8 of them or 10 of them, depending on the book. So I have kind of blocks that build upon each other. When I set out to, as far as the mystery part goes, I do kind of just write and see where I end up and see who the perpetrator of whatever crime is, and then I put the clues in later.
Okay.
And it is that I think that's the hardest part and very subjective, and particularly difficult with kids, because for sometimes these kids are reading a mystery for the first time. So I want to make sure that they also pick up on the clues, but I also want to make it fun for the kids that maybe are a little bit older and are, will be able to spot, a clue when they see it. So it's a balancing act, and that's where an editor comes in handy, because they'll be able to say, hey, this isn't foreshadowed enough. And I would argue that you don't even have to be writing a mystery. If you're writing any sort of story that, it's going to have a conflict in it, right? And there's some resolution. You need to also build that and add information that leads you to come to that final scene where you're like, okay, there was no other way for this to end but this. And that's what we want to feel as readers. So I think it works the same in that you kind of have to go back and go, okay, should I say more here or plant a clue here? And that's where some of these false clues, so they're red herrings, right? And mystery lingo. Some of those false clues come in really handy, because you can kind of surround an actual clue with one that isn't one, but we don't know that yet. So that's a way to sort of play with the reader. And it is a game. I would argue, in the end, to see where you end up, and that's the fun part, and that's the thing that the teachers and the kids latch onto the most, is sort of the game component. Like how do you get to the end? Where are the clues, and does it make sense? And so that's a lot of fun, I think, and that's why I love the genre, honestly.
I guess my next question is, do you look for, it sounds like you're published through a publisher, but do you look for a certain editor that edits that genre?
I would, if I were, because I've been traditionally published, so then you work with, obviously, the editor that you land with, but it does help, and that's a challenge sometimes on the children's side. People who know the children's book market very well, most of the time, do not understand genre. People who understand genre very well often don't understand the children's book market. So if I were going out there, and I have some manuscripts on the shelf that may not find a traditional publisher. So then I might go, okay, do I want to publish this independently? Like I'm trying to publish Get a Clue. I think if I were looking for an editor, I would look at the editor that is most going to fill in where my knowledge is still lacking. So if I had written a children's book that had a mystery in it, and I was very strong on the children's book side, I would look for an editor who knows mystery. Okay. Because finding one that knows both is going to be really difficult.
That's a really good idea. Yeah, that's a good idea. I wouldn't have thought about that, but I'm glad that you mentioned that, because it seems like now probably you have your formula down and you know how to pepper in these clues, where to pepper in, maybe give some harder clues, give some easier clues, so you catch both of those advanced readers and those new readers. And you know how many clues to pepper in, how many false clues to pepper in, how to make it that YA component. And it may be even second nature to you now, and a little bit of a formula of how you write your next book, it just with a new mystery and a new set of circumstances.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the thing you want to do, or at least I like to do now, is the mystery I can get sorted is making sure that the character arc is strong, and that I've developed a strong cast of characters, that it is logical the way things flow. Because the other part that you have to sell, particularly on the children's side, is you want the kids to solve the mystery. And that requires a certain level of independence that you have to kind of sell. When I wrote Double Vision, the first book for middle grade that I wrote, this is a kid who's going on a spy mission in Paris. So you have to sell that his parents would let him go to Paris and just wander off on his own and chase bad dudes and ladies and all over the city and on a skateboard. And so selling that is important. So some of my challenges would be, if I were to look for an editor and I was going to publish independently, maybe a children's book, is making sure that that's makes sense and that I've addressed that particular challenge.
That's interesting, because you reminded me of the Flat Stanley series where, Stanley gets flattened by the bookshelf and then his parents just ship him all over the world. And he usually meets somebody in whatever city he's going to. But if people could sell a flat child being shipped around the world in the mail, I think they can accept a lot.
And there's a certain suspense of disbelief that the kids kind of want and expect at that stage too. I mean, obviously it's a book, it's fiction, and it's meant to be fun. But yeah, it definitely requires. It's something that you learn by reading a lot. You also have to read a lot of books for kids. I think if you want to write books for kids, you need to read them. And there's really good ones. Gosh, there's so many great books being published now that I feel very lucky to be able to have that sort of spectrum of reading now, and of being able to recommend those kinds of books to kids where it's not always the same ones. Because what happens a lot is, when I meet adults, is they'll reference whatever book they grew up with, and it's ancient. It's no longer, it's not relevant anymore. And even the books, like, I have trouble keeping up with what is relevant and what is new. Like Nancy Drew, it's old. And the Hardy Boys, it's old. It's still sometimes, some kids still latch onto it, but it's rare because just the world is different, the conversation is different, the context is different. So I think it's important for kids to read books that talk about the world they live in now, not one that was, your parents or your grandparents' time.
Yeah, I was trying to remember there's like a paranormal mystery series that I read with the kids. I think it's called Goosebumps, maybe.
Oh yeah,
that one was fun too. Yeah.
R.L. Stein, yeah, and R.L. Stein. I've been lucky enough. I got to meet him once, and a great guy, and he loves kids, and that's definitely a writer who just understands how to write for kids, and I greatly admire that sort of skill to know exactly what the kids are going to want to read about.
What are some other resources that you would point people towards if Get a Clue is your book that's coming out in April. What are some other resources?
I think SCBWI, if you're going to be writing for children, that's the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. If you want to write for kids, I would recommend joining them. They'll be great to guide you in the right direction as far as publishing goes. There's a great deal of pre-published critique groups, and they have conventions and classes and all sorts of resources that I think are really valuable on the children's book side. I'd be remiss not to point out I am currently the Rocky Mountain chapter president of Mystery Writers of America, so that's a really great resource. In fact, they're one of the few genre organizations that has an award for children's. And they have the Edgar Awards is the ones that are given out annually, and they have a database online of all the winners and nominees going back forever, basically since the beginning of the awards. So you can go all the way back and take a look at, okay, who was nominated on the children's side, on the YA side, and mystery, because it's a great gauge of what's being published and what's rising to the top. So what are the best books in mystery for kids? So that's an excellent resource. I would say, and then Publishers Weekly Children's is another one. They have a free newsletter. You can just sign up and you can see what deals go about and what's being published and what's being talked about in the industry. So those are probably the three resources I would point to if you're kind of trying to get some more information. And yeah, that's definitely that's about it, I think. And I mentioned them in the book, so and I have some books in there as well as far as resources go. So there's a lot out there, thank goodness. And with all of this Zooming and like we were talking about all the COVID stuff, the good thing that came out of it is there's so much available online and so many resources that you can tap into that don't cost anything and that can really help you grow your craft.
You've been listening to the Cal Zone, the official podcast of the Colorado Authors League, supporting and promoting its creative community since 1931. Learn more about us at coloradoauthors.org. This is a production of the nonprofit Colorado Authors League.